Hello out there, CUT. It is time right now. It's time for the rewind. This is our opportunity to rewind, to look back on the most recent Sunday sermon, workshops, whatever we choose. We get to play this game and have a good time doing it. I'm Reverend Sheree, and I am excited to be here to look back. We're doing a rewind on the Sunday sermon from August 24th. 2025, entitled God, My Church, and Me. In the hot seat today is the Reverend Gaylon McDowell. Before I bring him on, though, I want to just give you a moment. I know we're all clicking in here. Some of you like to be here live. We appreciate your energy. And so if you are clicking in here live, I want to invite you to go ahead and share this out. Let's create a wonderful, wonderful crowd where you can all ask questions as we move into the lesson. And I think you'll have a great time doing that. Second thing I want to ask you to do is that, hey, we go live most of the time on Wednesday or Thursday at 5 p.m. Central. But every now and then I work with the minister schedules and we jump it around a little bit. So you don't have to wonder. All you have to do is join our community, the CUT Collective Worldwide. It's on Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, you can join our community. Or listen, when you're in YouTube, you can go ahead and click that little bell, and that way you'll be notified of our go live time. So just want to make sure that you stay in the know, that you're able to experience this powerful experience with us live when you can. But don't worry about it, because they're on YouTube and you can always go back and watch. All right. So today we're in a series on making community, and community is so important. It's how we grow. And this series has been so amazing because we've been talking about relationships, right? And so in community, when we're talking about me and God, you and God, and then God in the world, you and God, everybody, all of us included, we talk about our communities. And so Reverend Gaylon McDowell broke it down. The hardcore metaphysician broke it down for us. And so without further ado, I'm going to bring him into the scene, and we're going to unpack God, my church, and me. What's going on, Rev?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Today I am wonderful. Listen, I'm excited about what we're going to talk about, because y'all, I got a love thing. And so whenever we get a chance to talk about love in its purest form, which is expressed in these growing communities, and you break down what community is, it makes my heart sing. So I'm glad to be talking about my favorite topic with you. Listen, this past Sunday, right? So I had the honor and the privilege. I'm back in Los Angeles now, but I had the honor and the privilege to be in the temple for Sunday service, and the energy is electric. Let me tell you, if you are able, if you're capable, if you're in the Chicago area, I invite you to go to, give me the address. I know it's 119 something.
11901 South Ashland Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, 60643.
And service starts at 10:30 a.m. Central. And so if you can't beat the feeling in the room, because I feel the energy when I am watching virtually, but in the room, it is just an amazing experience. So if you're in Chicago, put that on your agenda as well. I had a great time.
Good.
A great time with the fans.
I saw you clapping the music. I don't want no rocks.
Listen, I don't want no rocks crying out for me. I love that song. I do. Because it is the idea of what you're holding on to your praise for. What are you holding on to it for?
Yeah.
And yeah, they stirred the room, but the whole thing, all of the praise and worship was wonderful. And so your sermon kind of is this almost wrapping out the series. I think we have one more sermon in this series.
Yeah.
We're getting into from these relationships, going to the relationship you have with God, the relationship you have with yourself, the relationship you have with others, and now building out into just really looking at your community, how your church community and God work together. But again, the relationship being centered in God. You define community. I'm going to play a clip about your definition of community. But how does a church community differ from any other kind of social community?
I think from the standpoint of people coming together to worship, that by itself is unique. To a community coming together of a variety of people from different places and spaces to, in the proper context, learn how to become better versions of themselves. I think that's really important. A church community, in essence, should be teaching people how to evolve into being a greater expression of a spiritual being, or to express this Christ consciousness, to express this spiritual understanding of what, in our context at least, these metaphysical principles handed down through the ages and taught by Jesus. So, in that sense, a church, like many other communities, build their own family, but it's a family that is dedicated to helping transform the world and each other. I think that's wonderful. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of places that we go don't affirm our wholeness. And I think what makes it unique, especially within the context of Christ Universal Temple and in the New Thought Christian movement, New Thought Greater Movement, is we laser beam focus on what's right about you.
Yeah.
And let's lift up your wholeness. Let's teach you how to touch that. Let's teach you how to work through the breakthroughs, how to heal your mind and body, your life, your finances, etc. These are things that are really relative to what people are dealing with right now. People are looking at ways to be empowered. And you mind if I give a quick example?
Mm-hmm.
Someone reached out to me a few days ago, and I think it was Monday, and basically asked me about, hey, Rev, all this love and forgiveness stuff, but we're seeing these things happen in our community. We've seen, politics and racism and other things. And he was like, maybe less forgiveness and more more strategy. And I was like, it's not either or. I was like, things that are happening in the urban areas and that are affecting the Black community are not because we forgive more. And then I gave an example of, and without getting into all the detail of, how you can be a fully spiritually empowered person and still have strategies to be able to influence your local and national politics, to be able to empower yourself financially, to be able to have harmonious relationships, to deal with the safety and violence issues in our neighborhoods, at some, I ain't gonna say all, in some of our neighborhoods, how to address poverty situations, etc. And I said, you can still be, so who is the person that's dealing with that stuff?
Right.
Okay. So you can be the empowered, spiritually aware person that's free to express God's love, wisdom, peace, and wisdom and understanding. Or you can be the angry person, stressed and anxious person that's breaking down your body, that's stressing your mind, that's breaking down the cells of your body while you're also seeking change. Can both people do it? Yes. Well, who's going to be more holistic? And that's what I was trying to get across. And he got it.
Yeah.
He got it. It's like, oh, okay. Because I get, when you see injustice, you want to address it. And I never told him your anger is wrong, or you're wrong, or whatever. I'm like, but if you stay in this state, these are the potential consequences on your peace of mind and the health of your body.
Yeah.
This is not religion saying this. This is science saying this.
I mean, it's so contrary to, I think, the way that many religious communities manage the world, right? That we're taught to hold on to the truth, that you're standing on truth as you manage the facts, as you manage what's going on, because truly what you hold in mind becomes your experience, right? It is, you produce that, you reproduce what's going on in your mind. So imagine being someone who knows the truth as you are looking at facts that can really be convincing. We're all mesmerized at times by the facts of the world. And we'll say things about what we're doomed for this, and there's no turning back from that. And it's like, so these going ons in the world are bigger than God. Like, is that what we're saying? But if you're holding the truth, as you're looking at this, that I can transform what's going on in my life, world, and affairs, because that's how I'm designed.
And
I'm creative with that.
And collectively, we can do the same.
We can all do it, right? We can absolutely all do it. But there are some behaviors and patterns that we got to adopt. We have to adopt a new way of thinking, and the way that we're thinking. And I have my instances where I shut the news out, right? Because it's like, well, if I continue to, what am I feeding myself with? Because that's what's going to be expressed through me. But become aware. This is me finding my common line, right? Is to become aware of what's going on and then hold the truth for that. Then I ask a question. What's in this for me? What's mine to do? Because sometimes we don't ask that question. We just sit in this space of feeling powerless, right? There's nothing. The problems are so big. What can I do? And thoughts and prayers, people will say. People can't live on thoughts and prayers. Well, yeah, you can. Like, you begin, but in that conversation, though, what is God telling you? And that's what this clip, I think I'm going to play. Let me see if I'm going to skip this first one. Well, I'm going to dive into more of what community is, because you've differentiated what the spiritual community is. But really, the idea of where this community all comes from is that it begins with God. I'm going to play that clip first.
Okay.
This community begins with God.
I believe that we were created to instinctively seek higher purpose. I believe that every soul knows that there is an underlying divinity that created everything, including us. And somehow and in some way, we can communicate with this supreme being or presence. In other words, we were created to seek God, experience God, know God, communicate with God, and express God. Our relationship with God is our primary relationship.
And that's it all in a nutshell, right? Our primary relationship. And I'm glad that you had a real, like, people come at us after these sermons like, wait a minute, real world scenario.
Yeah.
Loading,
They upload them fast. Like,
yeah.
wait a minute, Rev. And that's good, because I don't think any minister should be in a space that we feel as though we can't be challenged. That's cult-like thinking. It's okay. You presented something. Okay. Now, obviously, I'm not going to keep drilling down on the context once I give, okay, this is my answer. But I think having those type of questions requires deeper thinking, and having deeper thoughts about your theology is always a good thing. The very first book that I ever taught was the book "What Are You" by Melda Shanklin, many years ago, and almost 30 years ago now. And almost 2 years will be 30 years. I literally remember part of the book where she said that you should, when you are teaching a theology, you should take the opposite position and challenge it. Ask it questions to see if it can hold up to the questions. And I think that makes a difference. So I think it's great to have questions, because the thing about it is, if you just, okay, I'm just going to drop this jewel and just act like the statements that you just gave just came out of the clouds with the sun ray, at the end of a rainbow. No, let's look at, okay, we have something. Now, how do we make that practical in real life? Real life from the standpoint of the 3D world that we live in, 3-dimensional world.
Yeah.
Not
And it's
metaphysical context of eternal, absolute, et cetera, et cetera.
But I think that that's a really good practice, is, especially if you're struggling with something, struggling with a concept. I know that I used to struggle with the idea of God, and I've shared this before, of the idea of personal God and universal God. So, like, how a God that I grew up, and my spiritual leader, Reverend Della Reese, had a personal, intimate relationship with God. Like, it was a very, very intimate relationship where it felt like, man, do I love God that way, in my feeling capacity. But I'm being taught about principle. So how do you love principle? You know what I mean? And so I would go back. And so that questioning process helped me to understand that God is my all. Like, it encompasses all of it. So what is the God experience that I require in my own soul's growth? And so we can give each other the space to experience and to grow in our awareness of God as we understand principle more and more. And that was one of the gifts my teacher gave me. But this is your primary relationship to develop. And I appreciate that you talked about that, because I think that if we don't have a starting point, then our basis for building community can be all over the place.
And
We talk.
it has, it has no foundation other
Yeah.
than shifting opinion and emotion.
Yeah.
And we know sometimes where that can lead us right into the ditch.
Yeah.
Like, what is this based on? And so when I start to develop, to transform myself, I'm a part of a community that seeks to teach me how to transform my own thinking, my own feeling, my own belief systems, my own words, my own actions, my own reactions. That changes the conversation. That doesn't justify anybody's bad behavior. But if I am in alignment with truth, then the outer stimulus won't necessarily trigger me to react in ways that I don't need to react. I just saw something. I follow these martial arts stuff on social media, and it was a guy that was in an airport. Some woman was in his face. You get out of my face, and she's saying, you get out of my face. Now he works at the job at the airport. Now, a smart person would say, okay, this person is clowning. Let me go call security. He wants to challenge more and more board. Now, you're a grown man, all in this lady's face. She's wrong. It don't matter. Somebody comes in, she reaches around, smacks the guy, and he beats the woman up. So I'm sitting there like, oh my God. He loses his job. I don't know if he got arrested. I don't know, whatever. But here's the thing. You know what could have happened? She could have clowned and he could have walked away.
Yeah.
But when but this is why being a part of a community that's always impressing your mind on there's a higher way matters. Because he might not have been in that community. He might have been around people like, man, you don't let nobody punk you out. You don't let nobody talk to you any kind of way. And then next thing you know, you're putting yourself in jeopardy. Or as, for those who remember, I'm not saying Christians, you go watch it, but in the old Dave Chappelle skit, when keeping it real goes wrong. And that can really literally happen.
Yeah.
Your spiritual nature will, until you transform enough, feel very awkward and uncomfortable when you want to go upside somebody's head, when you want to speak to somebody to return their energy the way they're giving it.
Yeah.
But as a part of a spiritual community, you should be learning how to behave better. Anyway, that's, and that starts with your primary relationship with God, because if you have a good relationship with the indwelling presence, more likely than not, you have some level of peace in your own soul.
Right.
That doesn't allow you to get so quickly triggered.
Absolutely. And you talked about community. This is the clip I didn't play. I'll give you guys a quote from it. That you define community as a community as a connection that can be based on anything people have in common, including, and then it's the myriad of things, belief systems, right? And so there is your community could be a retaliatory community, like everybody's against us, and so we are constantly in a space of defense. And so that mindset is going to feed behavior patterns. And you see people where you come from, your family is a community. That's one of the communities that you come out of. One of the things that I want to just impress, because sometimes when we grow, we start to talk against old communities that we may have belonged to, right? Like it's, I'm no longer in that mindset anymore or whatever, but every community has its space in your life, like where you grow, right? We're here to grow in those spaces. And there are times when you realize that I don't share the same goals anymore, or I don't share the same beliefs anymore. Talk to me a little bit about if you feel like you are outgrowing your community, like what are some things you can do? It's a very unsettling space.
Well, first you have to realize that nothing is wrong. I think when people leave when they're stuck between the old community and the emerging new community, people can make people wrong. They are where they are, just like you were where you were, until you weren't, until you had some light shine through and make you realize I don't have to live like this. So what ends up happening is, instead of going back and making all of those people wrong, stay focused on where you're seeking to go and realize that just like that community was created based upon a level of consciousness, a new community can be created based upon your new current level of consciousness, and be open and receptive to how spirit will guide you in making community. For instance, you know, if you're going to join, let's just talk about, my sermon was about God, my church, and me. If you're part of a spiritual community, even if you're an introvert, take some uncomfortable steps to get to know somebody. You know, take a class, join a group. Don't just, as soon as the service is over, I'm out. I'm not, I'm not talking. I'm not hanging out. I'm not going to go to the bookstore, whatever the equivalent is in your spiritual community where people are hanging out after service. Take time to stretch, because you don't know how that person that you might be taking a stretch for, obviously use wisdom and understanding, follow your own intuition. You don't need to be around everybody, including church folks. But feel it out so you can get an opportunity to see how you fit in a new community with closer to your values, shared goals, shared intentions, because it can make a difference. And as I've said multiple times here and in multiple places, church is one of the very few places where the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company and a minimum wage part-time person can be sitting right next to each other. So there's things that can be picked up, perspective. And I'm not just saying from the person that's the part-time minimum wage person. That CEO might need the perspective of that person that's still trying to figure out how to make stuff work, because they might be so removed from it that they've lost context. So so when you get people together that have different experiences under a shared value system, it allows you to grow from all levels. As a minister, one of the things that we have to do at times is have to go seek out where the pulse is. Because people don't want to, unless they're in breakdown mode, sometimes they don't want to bring the stuff to us. So we have to sometimes go like, hey, where are you for real? Hey, what's really going on? Hey, because we're not the go-to gossip person, nor do we want to be. At least I don't want to be. No. But at the same time, I want to be a part of making sure that we're supportive, and I'm supportive of our people to help them get past the things that might be obstructing their peace of mind, their joy, their love. So sometimes we have to seek it. But if a person really wants to grow from one community to another, they have to get out of their shell. And it's no other way for me to say that. And one of the beauty of the internet is we can do stuff like this. The obstruction of the internet is people think that it's a substitution for human contact in a real way, like being around people, paying attention to body language, knowing, one of the things that I've noticed now with communities outside of church communities is people at times don't know how to interact or communicate in certain environments anymore. You learn that through social structure. Like, okay, do I need to be walking through the grocery store with my phone on speaker, shouting and laughing on FaceTime with somebody? I don't need to hear your conversation with your homies. It's structure, all right? People don't know how to show up dressed for certain circumstances and situations, okay? It's not because they don't have the money. It's because they just don't know structure that was passed down to us from our parents, from church, from school, from social structures. Those things aren't necessarily being passed down now. And so therefore they're not necessarily respected. But guess what? When you go in certain circles and you don't know how to move, believe it or not, people are evaluating you.
but you can, like I said, I think that the reality behind these communities is that they're designed for you to grow. And our spiritual community, talking about churches, and this is any church, there is some way that you can contribute, and contributing in a way helps you to get to know people and to really become a part of, like, not a voyeur in your own community, that you're actually a part of the heartbeat of that community. And that's really where it gets to be really rich. And you learn how to grow, you learn how to forgive, you learn how to transform, you learn how to give people grace, you learn how to give yourself some grace. Like, all of that happens if you let it in the community. The thing that I wanted to emphasize from just that, the statement about, like, what that the community is a shared belief system. And I challenge you to ensure, if you're listening, you may be already a part of the Christ Universal Temple ministry in some way, whether it's visiting or you're a member. But understand that, one, that community is very, very powerful. And that even in this community that you may be accustomed to, there are two types of beliefs I think that we're dealing with. Like, we're right now, we're learning new things. So we're being deliberate about what we're learning. But there's stuff in us that's already embedded, things that we've gone through that are kind of like already embedded in us. And I think truly growing in a community is recognizing that some of the stuff that's embedded in me needs to be released. Some of the things I've been taught about how to interact with people need to be released, including something that may have happened a year ago, something that may have happened Sunday at church. Somebody bumped you the wrong way at church. Is that my response to this? Because I'll ask people sometimes, why'd you stop coming to church? Like, why'd you stop coming? And it'll be an incident. It'll be an incident. Beside that incident, they're enjoying the community, they're growing, but one incident. And I shared at the annual meeting, the annual meeting last week, about mean ushers at Up Church, and God bless them all. Mean ushers at Up Church, they know who they are in LA. This is back 20 years, but it was that energy. I could have stopped coming. I know people who didn't want to, like, I'm not coming to this church anymore, but it was like, oh, it was so hot. Okay, I'm gonna come next week. But the ushers were a barrier because they act like bouncers at a club. You know what I mean? Like, it could just be a LA thing, right? Because you know,
I get it. I get it. You know, it's a situation where I've heard many reasons why people have stopped coming to a place that blesses them. My thing about it is simply this: I'm committed enough to me to make sure I'm gonna go where I can get my blessings.
Absolutely.
But I'm also aware that it doesn't take a lot for a person to stop doing or being around things that help them.
Yeah.
You know, the slightest perceived insult or bad energy or bad experience, etc. Next thing you know, I can't do that anymore. And that goes back to what I often tell people: we want tons of grace, but we aren't willing to give it often. You know, when we make the mistakes, when we have the anger moment, when we misinterpret, when we mess up, we want grace. But when other people do it, there's no excuses. And I'm not saying that we should be excusing bad behavior. What I am saying is, there are times and situations and circumstances where something can be addressed and cleaned up, but there's no opportunity for a cleanup if there's no opportunity, at least, or willingness to deal with the breakdowns, or at least communicate to a leader. As you were talking about, you know, mean ushers in LA, for somebody to say, or write a letter, send an email to Reverend Della or somebody in their team and say, hey, I had this experience and I love this place.
Right.
You know, but I want to invite people and I don't want them to have this experience. Now that gives them an opportunity to clean that up. But let's just be honest about things. We often don't communicate our gripes. We rather complain. Okay.
Yeah.
Lawrence, it's one of my kung fu buddies. Hey, Lawrence. It's when you're dealing with leadership, it's in a church community, we're always trying to anticipate need. Any healthy community, we're trying to anticipate need, but there is no way to anticipate every breakdown.
Right.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
Okay. And now people are mad at God. They're mad at the ministers. They're mad at the leadership. They're mad. And the only thing I'm saying is, let's give ourselves an opportunity to grow together. What can we accomplish? Can we produce? And here's one of the things that I'm very aware of, because, as Reverend Wells says, I do unnecessary research. By the way, remind me when this is over, I got something I need to recommend to you. It's unrelated to this podcast.
I got 4 books sitting on my desk of
okay, but I always got more stuff for you to read. But one of the things that when you do church religious worship, not just church, religious worship, whether it's Christianity, Islam, Judaism, or Taoism, etc., traditional, religions of, from, it could be, Africa, Europe, South America, etc. The one component of a person sticking around more than others is volunteerism. If a person is volunteering, their ability to stick with the ministry skyrockets. It is the number one factor for a reason. For a person becoming a member, becoming a giver to support the ministry's mission, and all that goes along with that. If a person comes in and says, I'm coming here to serve, it changes everything.
Yeah, and I didn't know that was. I remember. So again, Up Church. I was brought into this community through Up Church in LA, and one of the things that I did is, like, I felt like there was so much being given to me that I wanted to do something to get involved. But my minister is a bona fide celebrity. Like, it's like everybody's clamoring for her attention. So I decided to completely ignore her. Right. To ignore trying to get in her face and all that. And it was like, I latched on to teachers and like finding out where I could do. And I searched for a way to serve. So I did become an usher at one point. And let me say, I just said the ushers are me. Ushering is not an easy job. I want to shout out to all the ushers, because you do need to
Lord knows.
Pray real hard before you go and serve, because ushers are keeping order established. Right. And so
people don't like order all the time.
No, they don't. You want to do what you want to do. You want to go where you want to go. And I get it. So I'm saying that we had mean ushers because they were mean, but I also didn't understand what they were working with in terms of maintaining order. My minister was a celebrity. So they had people who were just coming to see the celebrity and weren't working with the structure that was there. Didn't know that. All I saw was a mean body.
You don't know what their assignment was.
And I don't know what they're right. Right. I do know that they could have done it with more love, but I do understand that they were on a mission. So, but I knew ushering wasn't my ministry. That wasn't my space to serve. And I bounced around to different groups because I knew that there was, again, like you said, there's something good here. I haven't found my space. So I want to just invite you not to give up, right? Because there is a space. Maybe you need a new space. Sometimes we over volunteer in one area of the ministry and we get burned out from that. And then we just shut down. And I've seen people do that when they were really enjoying it. They just didn't have a balance. So, these communities where we grow, we're growing in all kind of different ways. But we're all called to serve in some way. I'm gonna play this clip and then we'll talk some more about our callings.
Okay.
Our callings. All right, here we go.
Do you believe you've been called by God? See, calling is not just about ministry. Yes, I've been called as a minister, but that's not the only call.
Wait. Where's my clip?
That was a good point.
Stevie Wonder was called as a singer.
This is it. Here we go. All right, let's run that back.
All right.
Do you believe you've been called by God? See, calling is not just about ministry. Yes, I've been called as a minister, but that's not the only calling. Stevie Wonder was called as a singer. Denzel Washington was called as an actor, right? Shonda Rhimes was called as a writer, a screenplay, and a producer. Different things. You were called by God. Do you believe it? Not just to exist, but to bear fruit. Not just to stay stuck.
So you were called to bear fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the calling, right? How do you help people recognize that they're called?
Okay. Well, first of all, I really believe that's more of a mystical thing. So this is not the answer. These are just some suggestions, because I believe that the best way to understand the calling is for you to develop your own relationship with God through your own practices. You know, I talk about my practices: prayer, meditation, visualization, contemplation of spiritual ideas and ideals, sitting in the silence, being in the space, studying spiritual material. That helps open me up for me to know how God moves through me. I'm a big believer in that.
Mhm.
Other cultures, have rituals they do and things of that nature. You have to drill down on what you need to do as an individual soul to open yourself up so you can get clear.
Yeah.
Because without the clarity, without the spiritual clarity, then some advice may or may not work well. But let me give you some general stuff. This is general, Reverend Sheree. One of them would be, what's easy for you and hard for other people?
Mhm.
You know, um, you know, sometimes we don't pay attention. I'm not just talking about ministry. I'm talking about in general. Often people start talking about um, um, how much something is so easy for them, and how they have a natural interest in a thing. That's another way of looking at it. What naturally pulls your interest? What naturally pulls your attention? What do you want to see changed in the world? What do you want to see transformed? Those are all signals that let you know, well, like, wait a minute, uh, this makes a difference to me. So, for example, for me, I thought it was normal that people can read a lot of information and explain it. So when I first started coming to Christ Universal Temple, and I'm reading 3 books minimally a week, I'm talking about highlighted everything, and could explain to you what I read. I thought that was normal. I found out later that was easy for me and hard for other people. All right.
Mhm.
The ability to communicate it. Easy for me, hard for other people. I had a natural interest. So when I found and discovered it, now I'm a extreme seeker. So I'm naturally interested in it. It's hard to make somebody exceptional about something that they're not really interested in,
Right.
that they don't really have a heart for. They don't have a drive and a desire to get better at or learn more. So these are things that can help us understand potentially what we're called to do. And again, what do you want to see show up in the world? And that's also a way you can help people. Excuse me, that's also a way you can help yourself, because now your calling, your purpose often is connected to, and I ain't gonna say often, I'm gonna say always connected to empowering and transforming you and helping others. I've yet to see a true calling that doesn't either help or inspire other people.
Right. But I think too that it's like not judging it. So when you sit back and think about it, because I agree with you. I think one of the ways you can say, like, what is my calling, is it is to do um some introspection, and just to kind of look back at your experiences and ask yourself those questions. What did I enjoy? Where am I afraid but I do it anyway? Like little things that kind of like give you some clues, and pay attention to that. But it's also not to judge it, because you can see some people and their calling is very visible. Like it's people who may be whose calling puts them in front of audiences, who
Mhm.
where people they're known for the thing that they're called for. And there are other people that you would say, oh, that's not a calling, right? So I think for some reason I always think about people who cook. and people who bring who have meals. And I know people who they wouldn't call this their calling, but they gather people around loving tables, and it's something that they do really, really well. And to say that, oh, my calling is love, like I bring people together and I feed them, right?
Mhm.
Let me tell you what a powerful calling that is if you embrace it. And there are things that we do, some people who declare order, where there's chaos and confusion. Maybe they're the one that goes and cleans out a closet or cleans up a storage, but declaring order, like that's a calling on their life. And we can look at that and say, but that's not sexy. Like that's not a glitzy calling. You know what I mean? No, it is what you do. It is how you express and how you love and how you share with your community. So I do want to challenge you, because I've had people say that they don't understand their purpose, or they don't feel like they have one. And if you talk about purpose and callings being in the same sphere, it's like I'm kind of rudderless. And I do want to let you know that you have a calling. You just may not be putting value on it.
I'll give an example. In our field, in our work, let's just be honest. Most people want to be in front of the microphone. And that's a big deal for them. They want to preach the sermons. They want to be in front of the congregation, etc. But they're ministers that are not necessarily natural preachers, you know. And for instance, all the time I've been at CUT, I never heard Reverend, she now moved on, Reverend Wilmetta Harrell. We used to say Harrell. Talk about Reverend Coleman put me on the platform to preach this, and this, because she was a great teacher. She was if you wanted somebody to visit you in the hospital, you wanted it to be Reverend Wilmetta. Trust me. If you wanted somebody to pray with you, you wanted it to be Reverend Wilmetta. If you wanted somebody to counsel you, you was going through a hard thing and you needed a loving but firm truth hand to help you through a situation, you wanted it to be her. She knew that being the out front minister was not her role. She was comfortable with it, and she wasn't comparing it to Reverend Coleman and some of the other ministers who came before or after her, because she was comfortable in the calling that God gave her. And I think so, and she maximized it with the daily inspiration with her and her husband for all those years. Even after he passed, she worked on a DI from 75 until, Lord knows, basically up to almost her transition. A little before the pandemic, like literally. And because she was able to embrace it, how many people were blessed by it? Instead of trying to judge, well, Reverend so-and-so is on the platform, is getting all these preaching opportunities, and I was there 15 years before him or her. No, it's understanding what is it that God is guiding me to do? How can I show up as a blessing in this space? What is fulfilling to my soul when I do it? All right. So it's great that some ministers are great preachers, but they don't like to teach the detailed classes. Some people love to teach the detailed classes. They don't want to preach, or they're not necessarily good in that environment. Some people are more behind the scenes. They counsel, they pray, they do the pastoral care, they do all the stuff that's necessary. Because here's the thing, for those, and I guess I would be a person that would be considered a platform type minister, but I also recognize that I'm also a person that maintains the systems of the church. That's also necessary for things to function. So we get caught up, and I agree, we get caught up in the judgment versus what is it that God desires to express through me. See, it's a humility that goes along with the spiritual walk. And and it's not the destruction of the ego, but it's the proper alignment of the ego, which is behind spirit. And okay, how can my human personality reflect spiritually what the indwelling spirit Christ I am is saying? And I think this is one of the things we teach with our Genesis chapter 1, when we say that metaphysically speaking, on the fourth day that the great light and the lesser light were created. And we obviously interpret that as the sun and the moon. And I often tell my classes, does the moon have light? No. What does the moon do? It reflects sunlight. Metaphysically speaking, at least in our brand of New Thought, the sun represents spiritual understanding, and the moon represents the human will. And that human will should be reflecting the light that comes from spiritual understanding. This is a part of understanding that when people see us, they should see God's light, God's love, God's peace, God's abundance, God's health, God's joy, God's fun. Reflect it in our life and in our service.
Yes.
I can't say service enough.
Yeah. It's a powerful thing. And this is, I want to keep talking about calling a little bit, because I feel like you relaying that the thread, if you look across religious traditions of commitment to that tradition, that volunteerism is one of those threads that you can see across the board. And we can all look and think about what we give, right? Like, just, I'm inviting you right now just to take a pulse on yourself and say, what do I give to where I'm spiritually fed? What am I giving there? If you're a part of our online community and you're not walking into the doors, I know it can be a little confusing, because we dip in and out of lives. We dip in and out of all of these different spaces, and you may not understand that you are indeed part of a community. And so in this community, there are ways for you to grow. Now, this is a plug, but it's also a call, just something for you to ask yourself. If you're one of our virtual friends, if you're one of our virtual family members, there's so much opportunity that you have to help create and to expand and to enrich the community and the experience that you're having as part of our virtual community. This is something to think about. What can you contribute? What can you contribute differently? If you're not as excited about what you're doing, because I'm gonna tell you, there's nothing like an excited giver, right? Someone who is really excited about this, the role that they stepped into, versus someone who is starting to feel like obligation and burden. Where do you need to freshen up, right? So this is something for you just to think about. And here's the thing, because if you've been burned out in ministry before, if you've been burned out in any community before, every time somebody asks you to do something, all of that burden can come back into your mind of like, oh my gosh, that was saying yes to this made my strain in my home life, and I didn't have time to do that. I was always tired. And I get it. Your minister asking you to do something, your spiritual teachers asking you to do something can feel really like, okay, I got to do it for them. But I want to invite you to think about this. How can you answer the call on your life? Through your service in your spiritual community.
And I want to add one extra thing, Reverend Sheree, if you don't mind. How can I prepare for the service I want to give? Okay, so when I made, when I realized, like, I need to be a teacher, and that didn't come through me. Let me just be clear. That came through a woman that was a UFBO teacher who taught on the JCI staff, named Rosemary. What was her name? I'm messing her name up. It was forgot her last name now. Anyway, she was a Bible teacher in JCI, and I was in Bible 2, and she had the class doing an assignment, and she just pulled me up in the class and said, these classes are too easy for you. You need to be in intensive. And intensive was the nickname for the teacher counselor training at the time. And it stopped me long enough to be able to, like, okay, that's different. I remember going to talk to Reverend Joe Hill about it. And Rosalie, well, her name wasn't Rosemary, it was Rosalie Jackson. She made a transition some maybe 20 years ago. And Rosalie saw something in me that I didn't see in me. But when she saw it in me, I couldn't ignore it because I knew it was true. Rosalie's conversation put me on my track to become a minister. I might have still made it there. It might have been a lot later, because this was a person who was teaching me, who I highly respected as a spiritual person in the know, quote unquote. And she saw something in me that made me pause enough to say, is this true? It opened the door And this is so why am I sharing this? Because when you're in a spiritual community, you might not really be seeing you, because you're seeing yourself through all of the past, the experiences, family stuff, drama, the highs, the lows, the school, the work, the intimate relationships, the friendships. And it's, but somebody is seeing the diamond in the rough.
Yeah.
And that one conversation with Rosalie Jackson changed my life forever. But here's the beauty of it. How many people did she affect with one conversation? Because I've been teaching New Thought since 96 and served so many sermons and so many classes and conferences in other countries. And I have 500 and something episodes on my podcast that's listened to. I have people reaching out to me in Africa and Europe and Mexico and the Caribbean, etc. Her one conversation helped all those people.
Yeah.
Not just locally at CUT. That one conversation. So I'm saying, as you engage in community, somebody might see the potential that you might not see in yourself right now. Because I was just studying and working and trying to understand this truth. Becoming a teacher or a minister was far from my mind. And I'm not saying that's your calling, but somebody might say, you'd be great as a mental health professional. Your disposition is so great. Oh man, you're great. I see when churches need the table thing and you're fixing it and whatever. Have you ever thought about et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah.
I don't know what that thing might be.
Yeah.
Sometimes people will see you because they're new in your space in ways that you can't see them. I don't know if a family member of mine, as much as they love me, or my core great friends who I still have to this day, would have said to me that you need to be a spiritual teacher.
Right. Yeah. Would not have occurred, because that's not, but that is that openness I want to just impress, right? That we can be in these communities and grow, right? This is not, there's a give and a take to being in spiritual community. What are you giving? Right? If you're not receiving anything, you need to examine, what am I in this community for?
Yeah.
If you're not being fed, it just may be that it's time to transform. Maybe there's something that you need to do more. For example, you talked about being in class. Like, I don't take classes anymore because they are, I've taken those classes, whatever it is. Talk to Rev here is the head of JCI. Hey, I would love a class about XYZ, right? Like, I've taken this is your community, own it. Own the community that you're in. Don't just sit and get served, but go and be of service. Go and be a contributor in positive, constructive ways. It really does make the experience so much better for you. Because the one thing that you talked about is that what volunteerism doing is you got some skin in the game. You got some skin in the game. And when you got some skin in the game, when you got some investment, you want a return on that investment. And so it matters more to you when you work about it that way. And I mean, we're talking about spiritual community. That was the center of the heart of this lesson. But Rev talked about all the communities that you're a part of. Like, it may be time just to examine your communities and to say, like, where am I saying I belong? By showing up, by contributing. Like, where am I saying that I belong? There may be some communities you have outgrown, and it may be time to lovingly release them. There may be communities where you are the lead, and it may be time for you to be a better leader in them. It is, but to take some time and examine that for yourself and have the courage to do so without judgment, right? Like, this isn't, I know that sometimes I personally will go about things and start telling myself a story that has no basis in truth, just a story. I gotta let that story go. I gotta see beyond that story, and questions will help you to do that, right?
Yes,
Questions
yes.
will help you to do
I'm
that.
a big believer in reflective questions, because sometimes we ask ourselves the wrong question. We ask
Yeah.
ourselves disempowering questions. Why
Mhm.
nothing ever works out for me? How come I can't
Mhm.
stay in a good relationships? How come everybody cheat on me? How come I can't keep the job? How come those are disempowering questions?
Yeah.
Okay. Empowering question is something like, Holy Spirit, what is your highest vision for me?
Mhm.
Holy Spirit, how can I be a blessing in this place? Holy Spirit, where can I make the highest and best impact that gives you the glory?
Mhm.
Holy Spirit, how can I best heal my mind and heart so I can be in a loving and harmonious relationship? Holy
Mhm.
Spirit, how can I attract the people that love and support and see me for who I can become as I'm evolving to it? Ask yourself empowering questions. God, how can I be more prosperous?
Mhm.
Okay, now then you get still and you allow that reflection to emerge as answers. But when you're asking yourself disempowering questions, it shows up differently. God, how can I be of greater service to my church, to my
Yeah.
family, to my humanity, or whatever? And this doesn't have anything to do with, because people automatically go to people using, manipulating, or whatever. I'm not telling anybody to turn off their wisdom, turn off their intuition. I realize every community is not healthy.
Examine them. That's what I'm saying. You got to examine them.
But this is
Yeah.
why the critical questions and the examinations are necessary. But here's what I am present to. Maybe Jesus got it right when he said it's better to give than to receive. Not that it means that you shouldn't get what you're supposed to get. He was teaching a universal law
Yeah.
that give
Yeah.
comes first, receives comes after the give. And are you willing to give what you want? Because when
Mhm.
you're willing to give what you want, it comes back to you, pressed down, shaken together, and running over.
Mhm. 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 This is good stuff. It's good stuff here on the Rewind. I'm glad y'all tuned in for it today. And I hope it made you a little uncomfortable. I know I got some spaces where it hit me in my tenders, and I'm feeling a little uncomfortable. But again, I want to be out of my comfort zone because that's where I grow. Right? We grow when we step outside of our comfort zone. We allow ourselves to challenge our embedded beliefs, right? And look and say, is this for who I want to become? Is this the behavior pattern? Is the thought pattern for the me that is emerging right now? So I'm grateful for the conversation. Thank you for the lesson. And thank you for the members of Christ Universal Temple for your energy at the annual meeting. This past Sunday was a joy to be a guest there and to see how much you care about your church, to see that you putting some skin in the game. Just showing up sometimes helps to do that as well. So yeah, I'm excited about what we're doing here. I do implore for you because there's always soul work to be done. Examine your communities. It's whatever wherever you are. I know that there is a growth opportunity in front of you. Um there is a part of you right now that is holding yourself back from really living more abundantly, for really living the greatest level of your health and well-being. And so examine the communities around you, and you will begin to see you may get some clues. You may
Yeah.
get some clues.
And one of the things, Jesus tells a parable, and I can't remember where right now because it just popped in my head. And Jesus is basically saying that when you go into a place, sit in the last seat, and you will be brought up versus trying to be trying to take
Front.
the first seat and being put back. Why do I bring that up? Because sometimes people only want to volunteer in what they consider the sexy stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They want to be seen of people.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of showing up and saying, okay, what is needed in the space right now? So, I jokingly, Rev Wells and we joke about carrying boxes at POTs. I can remember, I was joking with him about this, about how we were at the POT, I think it was 98. And was it 97, 98? We're downtown Chicago and we're carrying boxes. We're doing all this stuff. And only thing I wanted to do was see Dr. Rocco Errico. Out of all the speakers that were there, it was great speakers. We're working though. And I can remember saying to Reverend Carrie, like, can I just go see Rocco? And she was like, yeah, go ahead. Because she knew how much that meant to me. Now, here's the thing. I'm already a licensed teacher in UFBL. I'm already on the JCI staff. I'm already what you consider out front now. And I'm carrying boxes at the conference because that's what was needed.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not, you know, so if you can only volunteer for the sexy stuff, then ask yourself some real serious questions about, is your volunteerism about being seen? Or is it about what is needed?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Because here's the thing. Because I was the person that was willing to carry the boxes or put up this or take this there or whatever, that ushered me to the platform.
Yeah. From the back to the front.
All right.
Yeah.
All right? I didn't show up like, hey, put me up and I need to be the speaking and I need to be platforming and I need to be, you know, visible. No, I just did that. I was just saying to Reverend Wells and I were talking yesterday. And in the midst of the conversation, we were talking about our early days. And one of the things that he said to me was, you know, back in the day, we used to do the noondays in the Faith Chapel, noonday lessons that they see now on Facebook that I put on Facebook because of the pandemic, realized that created its own community. I didn't want to take that away from people. So I left it there. But now he's working downtown as a foreman for the bank downtown. In other words, he was in charge of electricity. In other words, if what he was responsible for went down, the bank went down. Okay. He's important. He would take a day off of work to come in to volunteer to teach a noonday lesson at church. And I said to him, I used to do the same thing. I'm working management at Dominic's grocery store at the time. And I'm taking days off or I'm restructuring my schedule.
Right.
So I can come in, do that, and then drive to wherever I had to go. Meaning that means now I got to work late. I'm getting off 9, 10 o'clock at night. So I can be of blessing to get the reps, one, to give the service, because that was my give back to the church. Or one of the ways I gave back.
Yeah.
And we just talked about like, okay, when I say yes to commitment, what does that really mean?
And listen, if you're, I know some people who are watching. I'm looking at some of the names that are here, Dot, and like I know that you're giving, and it might be that whose hand can you grab, right? Whose hand can you hold and guide them into a new level of service lovingly? Give them opportunities to share, because sometimes people don't know where to begin. And I just happen to be a tiny bit more aggressive than maybe others because it felt like a close-knit circle. And I was like, I'm getting in, right? And so some people are like, no, I didn't feel welcomed or whatever. And we all got to do better as church people, letting people, you know, making people feel welcome and giving them opportunities to serve. We're creating new systems for that so that people will be able to easily serve. And so all of that to say is, those who are leaders, who are major contributors, find a hand to grab. Find someone to love up on and say, hey, come help me with this, right? Would you like to be involved in this? And just, you know, give them an opportunity. Don't make assumptions. You know, if you meet me for 2 seconds, people are like, oh my God, you're too busy. Don't put that on me, right? I live, move, and have my being in God's good time. So I always have the time that I need. Yeah. But you may grab my hand and bring me into something that I didn't know I'd want to do and enjoy in a way that I can contribute. That just was a great experience, whether it becomes something I do over and over again, or just like, hey, I got to see how this amazing machine works, how people can be prepared for. Like, I got a chance to be a part of that. So I've been in all the nooks and crannies of the ministry, all of the nooks and crannies. And I'll tell you that there's a space for you to grow and a space for you to serve, no matter what you bring to the table. There is a space.
before we close, I just want to just give some names
Mhm.
from my past at CUT. People who seeded into me greatly, but I was in the space to be seated, serving.
Right. Mhm.
Obviously, the Johnny Coleman, the Helen Carey, the Evelyn Boyd, the Wilmetta Harrell, the Winston Johnsons, the Herb Lassiters, the Joe Hills, the Christina Knox Walthals, the Fred Randalls, the Alberta Wares, the Marjorie Cooks. I love Cookie. I can't tell you enough how much I love Cookie. These are just some names. These are just some names. Walter Robinson, very love Walter, who was the former comptroller of the church, including all of the people that are now. Some of those people have moved on. Some people are still here. The Fannie McCullers, et cetera. Just people who, because I was here, the Margaret Robertson, who used to be the registrar and JCI, before her, Emma Luster Lassiter, or Alice Brown, ministers and teachers in this ministry. But I was always around. And guess what? For my service, you know what I got? Their willingness to give me their wisdom. Their willingness to give me their wisdom. I can't tell you how many times I sat in Evelyn Boyd's office as she taught me not just what was in the book, but what was off the book.
Mm-hmm.
When she retired, she gave her files to me. I have them in my office right now. She's like, I don't want anybody else having these files. You're the only one that understands, because I've taught you this is how the CUT system works. So when Reverend Wells came in as the minister, guess what? Who had the files of the stuff that he needed to know? He would come and get files out of my office that I never got back. He still has them. Like, hey, man, what happened to that file? I'm using it.
Uh-huh.
Because these were the files that were passed down from the Johnny Colemans to the Helen Careys, to the Evelyn Boyds, to Reverend Wells and me.
Yeah.
And I have to pass those things down to others as well.
Mm-hmm.
It can't stop with me.
No.
But those people, I can all those names I gave you and much more. I can give you examples of they told me this and I live by it. Mm-hmm. Examples, exact examples, not all they taught me. No, they said this to me at this time, and I've carried it with me since.
Yeah.
But you got to be in the environment to get it.
Yeah. Yeah. You do. And I'm grateful. Many of those names blessed my life as well. And that proximity, you got to put yourself in proximity. You got to put yourself.
I got one more name I got to drop.
Go ahead.
Stop dropping names. He was the father and grandfather and godfather of a lot of people at CUT. He was not a minister. He was not a teacher. He was not a high-level leader, but he impacted maybe more people than almost anybody here. His name was Edgar Allen. He was the bookstore manager who would stop and talk. You met him before, tall, light-skinned, older guy who would talk and give guidance. And when he saw a young 20-year-old me, you know what he did? He said, I see you always in here buying books and tapes. I want you to be my book reviewer. You tell me if the church should have a book or not. I'm brand new. And he would give me the books to take home to read. And I would come back and give him my honest review. It's little stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's little stuff like that. He didn't wait for me to say, hey, he just saw me and brought me in. That's how it works, y'all.
Yeah. Yeah, grab someone's hand. Like that is a powerful testimony, and how it can transform somebody. Because just when someone sees you, when they see your light, right? Because some of us are accustomed to people seeing your mistakes, seeing places where you have, not lived up to your best, to your highest potential. But when someone sees the greatness in you and acknowledges that, like, you can be that light for someone else. It feels so good to have it happen. This is good. I love the power of love in community. Thank you so much for the word. Thank you for setting the energy and the tone for the annual meeting, where it's a look back, but it's also kind of a reset, right? So what a powerful way to reset at the church and say, look, moving forward, right? Like, we're going to be a even more impactful, powerful spiritual community together. So thank you so much for that energy. Thank y'all who've been watching us live and chat. And I'm looking at you. I see you, Karen and Gloria and Dot, of course, the Pied Piper, Jeffrey and Brenda and Barbara and Lawrence. Thank you so much, Beverly and Crystal and Phyllis. Jamish, Jam Setter. And I know there are a couple people who are watching.
James Setter.
Huh?
That's James. You know, that's Reverend Marjorie Cook's niece.
Oh, very
you know
cool.
her. Yeah.
Very cool. Brenda, I see you too. So listen, thank y'all. We're having a great time here today. We'll be back next week with a special rewind, because here's what we're attempting to do. We're going to bring in the speakers who are going to be there. It's going to be a really wonderful relationship panel on this upcoming Sunday. And I don't have the people's names in front of me. Rev, do you know them?
It's Jason and Tina Scott.
Jason and Tina Scott. I do have them in front of me. And we'll be inviting them into the rewind. So we'll be back next week with something fun. Hope to see you there. Hope to experience that together. But be well. Have a beautiful, love-filled, and joyful day. Rev, you have anything you want to say before we wrap?
Only thing I will say is this: start with God. If you feel like you're out of alignment or out of tune, set some time aside, put your phone down, and it's a major distraction now. I get it. Your whole life is in it. Put it down, turn the TV off, or put some meditative music on, or whatever you need to do. Put your phone on Do Not Disturb, and just be in the space of the contemplation of your questions. And if you read something inspirational, scripture, affirmation, or whatever, but then just be with the space. And then do it again the next day, and then do it again the next day, and then do it again the next day. And what ends up happening is you take the time to discover how God works in your own soul, more of it will emerge. There is no such thing as intimacy without time putting in. You don't know a human being in your life that you know well if outside of the time you spend with them. If you want to know God and how God works in you better, then spend more time with God.
That's it. That's it. Thank you so much for that. Let's take that and walk with it, move with it. And I bless you in your journey. We'll be back next week. God bless.